In mid-September 2023, Nicole and I set off on a trip to Scotland. We were going to visit an old friend near Glasgow, walk the Great Glen Way, and explore Edinburgh. But before I get ahead of myself, I need to go back to the beginning of the trip. Our trip started at SeaTac, the international airport serving the Seattle area. Once at the terminal, we decided to have lunch at the Dungeness Bay Seafood House that mysteriously did not have much seafood on the menu. Shortly after sitting down, I felt a tinge in my left elbow, and after a few minutes, noticed a swelling about the size of a small lemon. It didn't hurt, however, so I chose to stubbornly put the issue out of my mind.
Already.
Almost soon enough, we were on our way. First to Heathrow, and then, after a rushed, confusing layover, lubricated with a can of English wine, Glasgow. We arrived in Glasgow mid-morning to a beautiful day. Our taxi driver warned us the football game between England and Scotland was happening that evening in Glasgow, and that downtown would be a ruckus. After arriving downtown, we checked into our hotel and had lunch at a quiet pub nearby. Then we went about settling in. Nicole was feeling congested, so I went to a nearby pharmacy that happened to be in the Glasgow Central train station. There I witnessed the local enthusiasm for the football match. Glasgow was transformed from a bustling train station to a meeting of fans wearing kilts and neighborhood colors, singing and chanting as they queued up to catch transportation to the stadium. It was a wild introduction to the Glasgow sports culture. That evening we avoided the turmoil and enjoyed a very good meal at the Atlantic Bar and Brasserie. Afterwards, we did a little bar hopping, met up with an assortment of people, including many English and Scottish football fans returning from the game.
Mental.
Oh, she's hardcore, man. She's from Seattle.
We stayed out far too late, but 3 a.m. in Glasgow is only 7 p.m. at home, so why not stay out late, right? On day 3, after having recovered from our arrival and the time change, Nicole and I set out early to see a bit more of Glasgow and then to catch a train to Wemyss Bay and a ferry to the Isle of Bute. There my friend Ed lives with his Scottish wife Alison. Ed and I met over 40 years ago at the Navy's Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island. Somehow we managed to stay in touch over the years. It is fascinating to talk to Ed and learn how the kid from Orange County, who spent much of his career at sea, is adjusting to life in Scotland. Ed and Alison indulged us, took us to see the 6th century St. Blaine's Church and the nearby standing stones on the southern portion of the isle. When I asked if he was getting out and traveling enough, his response was to sweep his arms across the vista between the Isle of Bute and the Isle of Arran and reply, "When I live here, it's beautiful, and I have everything I need right here." Unfortunately, time passed too quickly, and after a dram of scotch and a tour of Alison's puppet workshop, we had to head back to Glasgow. On day 4, we had breakfast in Glasgow and then took the nearly 4-hour train to Fort William. Once in Fort William, we visited the town's war memorial. Then Nicole set off shopping, and I toured the cemeteries before dinner and an early bed.
We arrived at Fort William today, Friday, September 15th, and tomorrow we start our journey on the Great Glen Way.
The start of our first day on the Great Glen Way was delayed while Nicole mailed home the souvenirs she had purchased the night before. This delay gave time for the cloud cover to break up and reveal a wonderful blue sky. We walked northeast along the Caledonian Canal on a largely flat walking path of packed gravel or crushed granite. The distance to our destination at Gairlochie was just over 10 miles. Unfortunately, our lodging was about 4.5 miles south of Gairlochie in the small village of Spain Bridge. This segment included sections along narrow country roads with almost no shoulders, a few hills, and a section along the busy A82. To say that Nicole did not enjoy this portion of the walk would be an understatement. Luckily, our lodging at the distant hills guest house included an area to relax and refuel. Day 2 of our walk on the Great Glen Way proved to be as challenging as Day 1 with a change in the weather. We were now on the north side of the canal and its associated lakes. While most of Day 1 was on wide, even suburban paths, now we walked along narrower, occasionally uneven dirt paths that, with the addition of sporadic rain, gave us a little mud to trudge. Like the first day, our lodging was located a couple of miles from the official end of Day 2's segment. By the time we arrived at the Forest Lodge in Logan, Nicole was soaked and unhappy. Luckily for me, the women who ran the lodge took Nicole in, dried her off, and warmed her up. Later at dinner, a fellow even gave us a bottle of wine, seeing how unhappy Nicole was. On the first day of our walk, I picked up a little bit of a cough that got progressively worse to the point where my coughing woke Nicole and I up a number of times during the night. As a result of that, and Nicole's exhaustion from the second day of our walk, we decided to take Day 3 off. Instead of walking, we took a local bus to our Day 3 destination, Fort Augustus. There, we enjoyed the day sightseeing and relaxing. Our walk on our fourth day on the Great Glen Way was a short 8 miles, and, unlike the previous 2 nights, our lodging in Inverness was right along the trail. The weather was relatively cool with occasional rain. Much of the trail was under canopy, but we still managed to catch glimpses of Loch Ness to our south. Wherever one travels in the UK, one will find war memorials. This one documents the loss of 14 local men in World War I from a village whose current population is less than 100. On Day 5 of our Great Glen Way walk, the weather improved significantly. There is a high and a low route from Inverness north. I chose the high route, hoping for a better view of Loch Ness, and was rewarded for that decision. It's Wednesday, September 20th. It is about 12:15 in the afternoon, and I am, by my calculations, a little more than halfway on my walk from Inverness to Drummock. I can't pronounce it. I apologize to the entire Scottish nation. I'm here alone because Nicole has had some challenges with her left toe, her left big toe, and so she is riding the bus today to meet me. And I'm thankful that it's not raining today. It's actually a beautiful day. A good portion of Day 6 of our Great Glen Way walk ran through the Abrahakan Forest Trust, a small, scattered community which, among other activities, hosts an environmental youth camp. Their student projects adorn each side of the trail. For some reason, Nicole loved these, while I thought they were a little creepy. This, though, was Nicole's favorite segment of the Great Glen Way. Maybe it was the flora. Maybe it was the great views of Loch Ness. Or maybe it was the opportunity to say hi to some of the local livestock up close. Day 7 was the last day of our Great Glen Way walk, and it started where we left off the day before, in the hills above Loch Ness. The hike ran through mixed usage areas that included logging, herding, and farming until it reached the outskirts of Inverness. It's 11 o'clock Friday, September 22nd, just a hair over 50 degrees. I am 3 miles into the walk from Loch Lady to Inverness. Today again I'm walking without Nicole, who is already at Inverness, and so will meet me there. There is no sign of sunlight, or direct sunlight yet, not a glint of blue in the sky. And that's okay for a long walk. Then the walk ran through a couple of small neighborhoods, and I was back on the Caledonian Canal. I met Nicole at the Castle Tavern, a few yards from the official end of the Great Glen Way. Moments after taking a few photos and settling in for a pint, the Scottish weather rewarded us with a downpour. Luckily, we were not out hiking at the time. In total, I had walked 64 miles of the official 74-mile path, but with diversions to our lodging, walking to and from dinner, and general wandering around exploring, I had logged a total of 84 miles on our Great Glen Way adventure. We took the 12th day of our trip off to rest and explore Inverness. At Nicole's suggestion, we also took a side trip to Dingwall in tribute to a friend of hers by the same name. Exploring Inverness, we also had a few margaritas in the local Mexican restaurant. The last few days of our trip we spent in Edinburgh, starting with the ever-busy Waverley Station. Edinburgh welcomed us with a heavy drizzle, so after a quick lunch, we Ubered to our hotel, the Black Ivy, on the southwest side of a couple of large city parks, the Meadows and the Bruntsfield Links, original home of the Bruntsfield Links Golf Society founded in 1761. The next day was breezy but mostly clear, and we wandered down the Royal Mile to the Holyrood House, the principal royal residence in Scotland since the 16th century. The tour was fascinating, but it left too much time for Nicole to hit the gift shops before we wandered back towards our hotel in search of libation and sustenance. On our third day in Edinburgh, we toured the Edinburgh Castle. Usually Nicole becomes quickly bored in museums while I take my time and simmer in their exhibits, reading each label. There's so much to see at Edinburgh Castle, though, that Nicole was able to wander around while I dallied in both the National War Museum, the Museum of the Royal Regiment of Scotland, and the Prisoners of War Museum. On our last full day in Edinburgh, Nicole visited a spa attempting to repair the toll the Great Glen Way took on her body. And I made it over to one of my favorite places in Edinburgh. No, not the statue of Adam Smith or his grave, but the Scottish Poetry Library. After spending a bit of time browsing the shelves and the humor in the restroom, I wandered past the Scottish-American Memorial given by Americans of Scottish ancestry to honor Scottish troops for their service in World War I, and the Wajtek Soldier Bear Memorial honoring a bear that served with Polish troops in World War II. Finally, after 18 days on the road, it was time to come home to our girl.